last week's episode instantly reminded me of another experience I had. This is while training, one of the few trainings that I had at Camp Pendleton, and I was doing the corpsman thing. It's kind of a long story because there's too much going on there. So many little side stories I could tell you, but it reminded me more about that one time that everybody went on a run. It was a company run, and the person leading the run was this bat out of hell creature, master guns, who was a Vietnam vet, and he looked like someone. He was probably a marathoner. I mean, he was not a large guy, but he was ripped. I mean, he had this old guy had he was pretty lean, so I could tell that he was a runner. Running was his thing, but he was a guy that would get up at dark 30, and he had full body armor. Like he's no weapon or anything, but he had the back then flak jacket. I know they have different gear nowadays, so it's been a little while since this happened. And just wearing an old-fashioned flak jacket, and he would just set out and to run every morning. So it's half of us were admiring, and the other half were more like, that son of a bitch. He's gonna end up getting us onto a company run, which he did. A lot of us dreaded that because it's summer and it's Camp Pendleton, and no, none of us wanted to go running with him. I certainly didn't want to go running with him because guys like him are gazelles. This guy was super lean. He may be about 5'5", maybe 5. I would give him the benefit of the doubt. He was not a very tall guy. He had to be at the most 5'6". I'm 5'2", so he was taller than me, but not by much. But I could see that he. Here's the thing about Vietnam vets: it's like for those of us who didn't get to serve in Vietnam, you gotta be afraid of those guys, because the ones who never came home, they get to live on. They get to be young forever. They gave their all, but the guys who survived and came home. You see a story every now and then in the news about some old grizzly guy, some punk kids trying to assault him or take his beer money, whatever it is, and end up getting their butts kicked, and the worst way. You just don't mess with those guys, and so this guy was no different. So this is it's been a while, so I thought he was an old man, but he had to be pushing in the late 50s, early 60s. He was still relatively young, but he was older, much older than all the other Marines that were for these units that were there. I was a reservist then, not on active duty, and I was in my best shape. But as I got a little bit older, I was in my mid-30s, so still young, still in great shape of my life, and I ran, but I don't like company runs. Never have. I got shorter legs. They would put me in the front. It's really annoying. It's not a great experience. So I'd go in the back and then kind of straggle. I either sprint or I'm a long distance runner. I was never really good at keeping up with everybody else. Didn't like it, so I still had to do it, like everyone else. And this guy insisted he was going to go on a run and shamed everybody. So even some of a couple of the other corpsmen went out there. So he let the Marines from 2 units out, and I couldn't even tell you where we were at the time. Not camping out necessarily. We were out just doing the usual, screwing around, doing exercises and a variety of training. Not necessarily in field, because we had to sleep in barracks or in Quonset huts. If you don't know what Quonset hut is, look it up. They're fine accommodations. Yeah, Camp Pendleton, it's called an oven. And so either you're outside and get some fresh air in the heat, or you sleep in an oven. And I did not like sleeping in Quonset huts, but it was a whole lot better than going out for that morning run. And we had tents and all. We had tent cities since we had a medical unit and all that. And so naturally, you're going to have sick bays going to be set up and all that stuff. And but for sleeping, that was not on the tents. And so old man led the run. It was going to be, I think, maybe 5-miler. I mean, it wasn't a terrible run. I've done, that distance before, but you're going basically through some brush. This is not like the briar patch that I talked about last week. Yeah, that was no fun. But you had that kind of vegetation on in Camp Pendleton. It's pretty possible, really, really most probable you're gonna run into vegetation it's gonna stab you or something. So no, I certainly did not feel like it. So, one of the few times that I said, rank has its privileges, I just wasn't keen on it. So I commandeered somebody had to pick up the stragglers. People always drop out of runs. It's part of the job. So they got me a driver, a young Marine, and got a truck and capacity, however many gals you could, stick in the back if they start dropping like flies. It was hot, and it's to be expected. And so the Master Guns set out on his way. And some people were managing to keep up, and some of them started to drop back, maybe about a mile in. It didn't last long before people started to drop back. And so we were just picking them up, and some people would just slow down. They would see the truck, and it's psychological. It's like you just don't want to end up being in the straggler. You can straggle, but you don't want to be in the truck. You don't want to get on that truck. It's kind of a stigma. I've been in the back of the truck once, and that's another story. It's a completely different place and time. But I was told to get in the truck. So it's unpleasant, if you're near dying, about to fall out, and it's, you're dehydrated, and it's, you have to command someone, regardless of rank, to get in the back. So we went about a mile or so or more, and then we gone through some vegetation. The usual, back roads that you get at Camp Pendleton. It's a shitty place because it's a Marine base. So all Marine bases are built in places where nobody wants to go. It's good for training, of course. The Marines just love it, and they have the worst locations that for normal people. But if you're not normal people, that's perfectly fine. And we just followed along, and before long, Master Guns had taken off so far ahead of the group that some of the guys that volunteered to go on this run. It wasn't mandatory for everybody, but the people who actually went ahead and felt guilty and went ahead and tried it. They wanted to stay with him, so some people did stay with him. I would say they were trailing him about a quarter mile. He was out far ahead, and sometimes even farther out. So they were struggling. This guy had a good pace. He was indeed wearing a flak jacket that morning. So it was mid to late morning. It was taking forever. So we're just weaving in and out of vegetation, and it was like a jungle or anything. I'm just saying through these back roads, trying to keep up with them. And our concern was not to be ahead of the pack, but mostly, like I said, to pick up stragglers. People get injured or they trip over themselves, dehydration cases and so forth. And we just collect them and tell them to cool off in the back. And then if they want to go back into the race and want to go continue on, that they can. We can stop and then we can let them out. We can let them off the truck and then they can continue. So it's kind of a break. Good way without actually losing a person out of the middle of nowhere, basically. So we had a healthy group of people. I think about 5. One of them was an officer. He refused at first. He was a large man. He's very tall. Now, I just looked him up and down and said, you're going to fall hard. You might as well take the ride, sir, and just get in the back of the truck. It'll be okay. If you want to go ahead and join the rest of the pack, you go right ahead. We'll stop and let you out, and then you can go ahead and, speed up and catch up with them. So there's no rules there. If you wanted to go back to camp, you just stay put, and then we just take you back, and the run is over for you. So I had about 5. I think I had 5 guys in the back. So I'm riding in the front, my Marine driver, and we're going along, and Master Guns was just going way too fast. I mean, that guy was just inhuman, and we completely lost track of the group. Everybody. I mean, after we got the stragglers, we just had no idea which route Master Guns had taken. So we're weaving in and out of vegetation and going one dirt road and just not seeing or even hearing anybody cadence, because the guy was obviously capable, of course, on top of all that, to sing out loud commands or motivational words, even though he was way ahead of the pack. And we couldn't even hear him at all. So I'm starting to get a little concerned. I mean, you could turn back and go to camp and drop off the guys we had with us, but there was no point. If we couldn't even find the main group, then we had a big problem, because then how we going to retrace our step backs to camp? At any rate, we just pressed on and got onto another roadway, and we started to see, maybe another guy, and then they would just disappear after a few minutes, and this went on for a while. So we've gone down this road, and these are dirt roads, but they're pretty established roadways. I mean, you can see that vehicles have been in and out, and brush have been cleared, bulldozed, just something that had been cleared before. It's not like this, no human had ever been out there before. And something told me, just kind of look to my right, and I could see, I told my Marine, look, we need to find the shoreline. If we could see beach, then we can try to intercept them there, and they just kind of wait at the other end of in the beach, not actually get, we had the vehicle, we can actually ride alongside if we had to in the sand. So we looked, and a good 20, 30 minutes went by, and we're just not making any progress and can't find them. If you see the little old man, in the flak jacket hitting the pack, then you'll know we're on the right track. So I looked after just trying a few dirt roads. There was a clearing, and there was this road, and I could see ocean, I could see blue, and no more vegetation. I'm like, oh, this is great. I kind of see them. So I told the Marine, just go ahead and turn right here and just floor it. We really need to, let's check it out. So we went along a little bit slow, about 20 miles an hour. And then I told him, hey, I can actually see them now. They're on the beach. That's how fast he was going. And I didn't see any other stragglers, so they were visible. I could see the group behind them. I still had a pretty good pace. And so I told him, the Marine driver, go ahead and punch it. Let's go ahead and catch up to these guys. I'm tired of playing games, so don't want to have to go fetching somebody out in the middle of nowhere later on. And we knew how many people we had out there running. And so he started flooring it. He's probably hitting a good 35 miles an hour, maybe 40. Everything's rattling. The guys on the back, they're hanging on. I asked him, you guys okay? Yeah, we're good. And the beach kept getting closer and closer and closer in view. And then he and I could see that they were running along the beach. And I was like, okay, that wasn't so bad. And I told him, stop. He kept going. I'm like, I told you to stop. He's like, Doc, what do you want? Just stop. Just stop now. Just hit the brakes. And then he did, so he stopped. I could see the trail of dust behind us, going ahead of us, and just there, because we were really hauling ass there. I can still see the beach. I said, let me get out for a minute. Just don't move, okay? Just stay right here. And he said, okay, not a problem. So I got out, slammed the door shut, and I started walking. And I'm getting a vibe. I didn't know what it was, but I didn't get any farther than maybe 10 feet before I knew we had the wrong road. So I turned around and I told him, start backing up. He said, what? I hollered at him because he had the window rolled down, and told him, go ahead and don't anybody get out. Just back up. Just go in reverse, and I'll ground guide you. So a ground guide really is a person who walks, ahead of a vehicle to make sure they make it safely, because you get two pairs of eyes, the person's driving. And that's a safety thing that we do. That's not unusual, even civilian construction sites, but there are other professions where they do this. But I told them, go ahead and back up a little bit. and just back up until I tell you, put the fist up, which is basically stop. And then I will get behind you, and then you have to use your mirrors, and then I'll back you up until you can go ahead and turn around. It was kind of tight, so there was not enough room where we stopped to make a 3-point turn. There's not, you don't have, he asked me, can I just go ahead and go forward? And I said, no, don't go forward, just back up. Just back up, and I'll tell you where you can turn. And after he turned, and then I got back in the truck, and I closed the door, put my seatbelt on, and I told him, let's get back to that road, and then let's go ahead and continue it on where we turn, make that left and back up, and continue on and go down. And he did as I asked him to, and then we eventually caught up at a certain point where it was another roadway, and accessing the beach was not doable. So we found another road where we ended up catching up at the other end, and there was nobody else that was straggling from the run, and that's the end of the story. But what made me stop was something that is hard to explain. I couldn't figure out what it was that told me to have him stop the truck when we did. Mind you that we were seeing what we wanted to be, but something told me that we needed to stop immediately. So when I walked up from the truck, I never told him what happened, by the way. No one in the truck in the back knew what happened. I didn't tell my driver. I walked up not even 10 feet, and there was this huge drop, and it wasn't even sharp. It was straight, almost a straight drop. There was no roadway. I looked. I didn't even have to be at the edge of this precipice. There was no road. It was an edge, and if you went all the way around, there was a coastal stretch, which we were aware of. But the topography was completely different what we could see from way back, maybe not less than a mile back from when we left the main road and turned into this dirt road. And it was a straight drop, and it's possibly about 100 feet. And then it went straight down, and there was slope, and then it would rejoin at the end, another maybe 50 feet or so, or maybe farther than that. Could have been half a mile. I'm not sure anymore. And there was some more of that briar patch. These prickly plants and other vegetation was running along the coast, along the beach, but it was farther from the beach itself. It's sand, but it was all vegetation. Not plowed. There's no human tracks there. I could see that. And then there was the sand, and then there was more sand, and then there was the beach where then for the Marines and the Corps had been running along the coastline. So it was just a matter of seconds. We were going straight. We were fixing to go off a big cliff, and I'm sure it would have been a spectacular fall, and the fireball, and maybe it would have been an explosion. I'm sure people at the beach would have noticed us. They were not even paying attention to that because you don't look up that high. Why that road was there, I don't know. I just know that it had been cleared. The brush, vegetation was thick on each side, and what I think is, my Marine didn't notice it. He had tunnel vision, so he was so focused on, okay, there's master guns. We see him on the beach, and but he was just gunning for it, like I told him to. But then what I'm seeing, because I'm not driving, I don't have tunnel vision. Something I picked up, my brain picked up something that didn't quite match. The longer we went on that road, it didn't seem like there was anything waiting for us. There was nothing. I don't know if you can grasp this concept in your mind without seeing a picture of it. Didn't have a camera. It's one of those times when I wish I had a camera, but this is long before smartphones, and even those little flip phones that had little cameras. I wish I had one of those too with me, but I wasn't that high tech back then. And when we backed out, there was no room for a 3-point turn because it seemed like there was this supposed dirt road. It started wide as though vegetation had been cleared, probably bulldozed and then made room for it. But then it seemed like the vegetation was getting closer to the truck. And when I'm perceiving this, I'm thinking, where is this tunnel? Where is this going? What we're seeing, what is the distance between where we are and where we're going? And why is it getting narrower? I think the narrowing of the road, and there was no room for him to turn without running into trees and brush and all that. I mean, he could have done it, but then it would have been more obvious that I didn't want to panic everyone. And I certainly didn't want to panic myself, because we really bit the proverbial bullet that day. That would have been, I don't think we would have survived that. And if we had, it would have been pretty disastrous. In retrospect, it brings me to the point of how much of our brains are dedicated to keeping us alive, because the whole idea is survival. And I kept that secret, until today. I haven't really talked to anybody about it. I may have to tell that story to somebody else, but I just relished that moment where something clicks, and it is a shift in the perception or the reality, what we think the reality is, what we think our eyes are feeding, what my driver was seeing. He just only understood driving and just focused on, she's telling me to stay on this road. I don't think really he was navigating. I was navigating for him. So he was only following instruction, but I'm the one navigating. I'm sitting there. I'm getting a clear view because I'm not operating a vehicle, so I don't have to worry about, my attention being focused to operating the vehicle and all that, which is what happens when you drive. But being a passenger and just paying attention to everything, I really think that's closing in is what triggered that reaction in the brain, saying, "Hey, death is coming." I don't see that perception. Perhaps something didn't match. So we have these autonomous systems in the body. I'm pretty sure you're probably aware of this. Our heartbeats, and we have our lungs. Everything's timed, and you got. I'm simplifying this. I'm not going to go into anatomy physiology lesson. There are systems within us that are working for us to keep us alive. These are the same processes that welcome, they vet information, everything the eyes see, and it comes in through the senses, whatever we hear or taste or smell or touch or feel. And what we've seen definitely is the perception was that we were getting closer to the target we were if we were riding in the truck in the same plane. So we're not considering that there's a drop. There's no roadway to get us to the beach. There was no way to get to the beach from there. And we navigate through life very much so that way, where we get tunnel vision. And we sometimes, even when we sense something's not right, it could be a form of danger. You're walking down a dark street, we know better than that. There's something deep down inside up here in the noggin that tells you, back off. And it's some of it is built in, and a lot of it is also fed by previous experience. Maybe it's a little bit of logic, maybe it's a little bit of experience. Some of it is environmental. Some things don't match. To me, it didn't match. Why is the road narrowing? Why is the vegetation just going slap, slap, slap on the side of the truck? Nobody's questioning this but me. In my head, I'm thinking, don't panic. Why is it getting narrower? Why is it closing in? If it's closing in, that means it's going to come into an end soon. See, we're going to run to vegetation, but we can see the beach. Of course, analyzing that many years later. I'm alive and well. Hopefully everybody else is in the truck was still alive and well, but no one ever got bugging me here. So the point being that intuition is something that comes into play. There's some things that we know for a fact. We have tested and retested. We have experiences, and they're they're deeply ingrained in our minds, and we derive a lot of the behaviors that we engage in based on some of these experiences. And the brain does that because the brain in general likes it. It doesn't, I shouldn't say the word like, it doesn't have a feeling. Emotions and feelings are created by hormones. Man, I got a fruit fly bothering me today. And so the brain really doesn't have a feeling for anything. It doesn't feel fear. It just says, this is a dangerous situation. There is a potential threat to living. And then issues, it something clicks. It's also the same mechanism that we have when we're, and if also being out on the field and training, where I'm just exhausted. Anyone who's ever been in the military would know that. Where they test you to see how you can get past some of these physical limitations. The physical limitation meeting is that there's some parameters we have to follow. The mind is infinite, but to push the body through something that it feels is not doable is where this mind body connection comes from. And you're getting fed from the environment. It's either your brain rejects what's going on, the information it's getting, or it just soaks it up and it sends warning signals and everything, which is what I got. I couldn't describe it any better than the way I just did. I'm not, in retrospect, I'm looking at the scene, my mind's still playing it, and I'm a young woman, and I'm in uniform, and I'm in a vehicle with a bunch of other people, and I'm not in control of the vehicle. Had not been driving, it's possible I would have seen the same thing, but I have a full view, and I have no other distraction other than I'm thinking I'm navigating. I want to get to that point. And why is it that it doesn't seem like we're getting there fast enough? The faster we went, the narrower the road got, and we didn't get any closer. And that's another clue. So when you're driving tired from a job, I'm not if you're just joining me, this is In the Pursuit of Joy podcast, you wonder, why am I talking about this stuff? It seems pretty unpleasant, but it's not unpleasant because I didn't die that day. That's always a good thing. So the lesson really should be derived from how processes that go on in our brains and our bodies are totally out of control, from our control. We can't stop. Well, I can find ways of stopping someone from breathing, or their hearts from pumping blood. We can find ways of doing that, even ourselves. We, in many ways, things that we do to our bodies, or environmental causes, can do that. But generally, if we are enjoying good health and all systems are go, that machine keeps running. It doesn't have any feelings for you, like I said. It just gathers information, it rejects and accepts, and it falls into certain slots where you already have some preconditioning, you have a programming, and it accepts, and I'm not saying it's going to like, it accepts the things more readily that seem to fit into these slots and these preconditions. So that was one of the many times in my life that I've experienced something that didn't seem quite right, but then I was blinded by other things. So if you're distracted by anything else, are you missing what's going on? And I think this happens to most people. It happens to me. But the intuition, which is this week's one of our 10 transformational lessons, developing an intuition. I should get to the point. Developing an intuition is don't get killed. Don't try to make it to death in life. Live so carefully and so cautiously that you'll make it to your death someday safely. That's not our purpose. I don't think it is. That's not my own statement. I gathered that from my studies, but it makes perfect sense. Most people, they don't take risk, and I discussed risk already. I may come back to risk at some point again in the future. Because everything involves risk, is being able to take action when our programming seems to go against it. It wants to lead you in a particular direction. In this case, it led me to stop because of all the pieces in that puzzle, that picture. It did not seem logical, even for the same brain that When I'm on diet and, I'm trying to, reduce in girth and I want to eat cheesecake, and I'm not exercising, it's not conducive to the end, to the outcome that I want. But I like cheesecake, and it's pure dopamine right there. Just eating cheesecake feels pretty good. It doesn't feel good when you're not reducing girth. The things that you're doing that don't match the outcome that you want, like I said. So for this scenario, and just like sleep driving, I've done it many times, tired from work, going home or going to work, and not being able to get a good rest. And I've gotten home and even back, I was backing in for the most part. Parallel parking requires skill. I'm already good at it. I had to be. But doing it in my sleep is even more amazing because I'm not even aware of it. But I'm so well conditioned to look for certain things that I already have that route memorized. It's all happened to a lot of us. This is the same brain that can go half and half. Only wakes me up like within 10 seconds of me hitting that light post, which is about like 2 blocks away from my home. Every time I fall asleep and I make that curve around this man-made lake, and then they got Canadian geese, just grazing by. It's the same scenery over and over. Every time, I don't live there anymore, but every time I drive by, I have to smile because it's like, yeah, that's the post and that's the sign where I'm always almost on the verge of hitting it on the way home from duty because I worked overnight shifts for a long time, and I know when I'm running out of juice, mental juice, where I know I'm going to be sleepy, and I already anticipate it. I'm not saying it's stressful, but I'm aware of it, and it wakes me up every time. Every time I'm about to hit it, go off run the curb, and it's the same thing with this incident from many years ago, where we just not even aware of it, like what clued me into we're about to die. But it didn't come that way. It seemed to be very logical and very quick and to the point and very focused. I wasn't suffering from tunnel vision. The driver was, and it happens when you're driving. There's so many things you can pay attention to, but you still have to be on a swivel head. But at the same time, I was a navigator. I had the most, the clearer view of what was going on. At the same time, I was a little confused. So conscious mind wasn't quite sure, but something deep down alerted me to stopping. You have one warning, and it was only one warning. It was like what I saw, whatever the clue it was, it clicked, and I said stop. And then it became desperate of stop, please stop. I know what I told you to go very fast, but I need to stop now. No point in telling them what happened because it didn't happen. It was averted. So intuition is also something where we learn to be more discerning and careful how we vet things we do, ventures that we get into, relationships, how we choose, especially when we choose business partners or intimate partners, or we deal with any other people in business or in school, anything. You have to be able to tell the difference between a favorable situation, and we create our own situations, by the way. Not saying that they come at us. We seem to place ourselves in a place where we're not prepared to engage others or to partake in a certain activity. It's just there's something that tells you from within that it's not going to happen. But we have to be able to tell way ahead of time before any problem arises that we're getting deep into something that we may not be prepared to do. And so tonight and this week, I'd like to think about working on your own intuition. Sometimes the voices in your head. I had a conversation with someone I know very well who surprised me recent months with a declaration that their intimate partner was not such a great person after all, and they were holding him back, and it was just a really big session. It was just, this person was stressed. There was something going on pretty big, but I'm going through that martyr, the victim topic that I discussed last week. Don't play the victim. This person was going, is always forever going to the martyr. A martyr is a victim. A martyr is not, they don't do things to, if you're a martyr because you think the sacrifice is worthy of any sense of comfort or safety for yourself, that's a different story. I can probably talk a whole 30 minutes more about people who just do things for others that where they derive a great sacrifice to whatever they want. They go above and beyond. That's not the kind of martyrdom I'm talking about. It's the victim mentality. It was one and the same in this case. And this person said that they were being held back and they couldn't grow. And I'll talk about growth later. And I'm just kind of like, do I leave now? Do I go ahead and rebut everything this person just said? Because the complaints that this person had were just totally invalid. I mean, the stress, I understand people being under stress, but the complaint was invalid because, first of all, they selected the partner. Partner is not a bad partner. Previous partners were not only abusive psychologically, they were not really attentive in marriage, and there were children involved, and they were not exactly a great parent or spouse. And there were comparisons made between the ones that were really bad from before that somehow have come back in their life just as friends and are supportive now after the fact. And some people do change a little bit. They do feel guilty. A lot of people just don't change. They're just still playing the same game. They're trying to make themselves look good and comparing what they have now, which is exactly what they asked for. But it doesn't seem to be enough. They're comparing somebody who's total opposites, but being so angry and dissatisfied that they're not seeing how they selected something better, but they don't accept it. It's not good enough. So when they get it, they're not really able to handle it. They wanted to change it, and I mentioned that sometimes you have to listen to your intuition about. When you deal with people, they tell you sometimes your mind just simply tells you this isn't a good thing, or it is a good thing. That's just why you went ahead and selected this person. And the response was more like, well, just because you have intuition doesn't mean it's all good. Listen to the voices in your head. I mean, they're telling you negative stuff. You put it there. That was my only answer. So with this week topic about intuition is when you notice things change, a shift in time and space. I'm not talking about numerology, or because I know some people they get into that. I do study that stuff, and there's some validity to it because they're random patterns, and I don't think anything is random. And everything's coincidental. If the timing, something happens, I believe that there's a logic to things that happen. So it's a chain reaction. If you hit something that you consider to be positive, sometimes more positive comes with it because it's already on that path. If you hit something that you consider to be negative, there's going to be some things that are going to be attached to that, different events and interactions with other people that kind of feed into that negativity, or at least that pattern that you don't want to get caught in, but you did something, you didn't pay attention to the brush getting really close and the road narrowing all around you as you're doing top speed on the road to nowhere. So I'll talk more about intuition, but just to listen to yourself and just spending more time with ourselves, just alone. I've talked about this before, and I'll continue to do that. I will always espouse spending time alone. So family and friends, they get offended. They just say, hey, I just got things to do. You don't have to explain why. to everyone. I just want some time alone. I need to do something. I want to read. I want some quiet. Just plain and simple. Should be able to command some time to yourselves, and just really think about what's going on really deep inside, and spend time to yourself, developing the art of just listening and experiencing things around you, and analyzing versus just kind of experiencing with no regard to the meaning. I don't mean that everything has to have meaning to for you to make sense of life, but to listen. And I said the voices in my head because they're it's firmly tongue in cheek. There's a lot of validity in that. The self-talk. In that incident, before going off a cliff, there was no self-talk. There was no wake up, some danger is coming. There were patterns, and once the patterns came together, they didn't come together. Something didn't match. Everything has to match. I think this coincidences are supposed to be happening. That's why it's called coincidence. If you read anything about from Wayne Dyer, he talks about coincidences that I used to believe complete opposites. Like, isn't that a coincidence? Well, coincidence is something that actually they bump into each other for a reason. There's an attraction. There's some conditions that have been met, and that's why these events or people or circumstances they don't collide. They simply connect, and that's your coincidence. So coincidence is not something that happened by random, some random event. Simply consider this week just listening more to inside yourself, and don't worry about intrusive thoughts. And this is not a recommendation to take up meditation, because meditation is a completely different phase. This is not about meditation. Some internal talk is good, and some internal talk is really intrusive. It gets in the way of you hearing what you really need to say to yourself, and a lot of that has to do with just emotional and emotional and cultural, or blockages that we impose on ourselves. Whatever it is that's keeping you from being able to achieve a goal, you just have to be able to develop that ability to know, or at least to sense, that you're on the right path. And whatever path you've chosen, it's going to take exactly where you want to go. So the intuition not to go off a cliff is like something doesn't match. So if you're doing certain things that match your objective, that's kind of a quick way to develop intuition. I'll go into intuition more in depth at some point in the future, but this is just an idea that you can work on. And if you have been following me for a little bit, you should have your journal, and just kind of think about writing about how sometimes you have questions on your mind that get answered, but you're not exactly sure what contributed to the answer. Just consider that things don't happen just by mere accident. It's not an accident. Simply, there's a logic behind what we think is chaos in the universe. And with that thought, I'm going to bid you good night. Got some interesting things going on next couple of weeks to the end of the month, and I look forward to having you join me. This is In the Pursuit of Joy podcast. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next Monday. Good night.